momentous. We have lost one of our members here in the last couple of weeks, and I would like to take a moment of silence to remember Judge Jeff Hines, who has loved this college, loved this college from the time he attended in the 60s, and continued right up until the very end to serve it wonderfully as a member of the chair of the nominating committee. So just take about 30 seconds and let's think about Jeff and his family. On a happier note, would love to welcome Sid Hancock to this board. Sid, I think everybody can see that. Well, you're not up there right this very second.
When he speaks, he's good here.
Should I say something? Can you hear me? Yes?
Yes, please. Sorry.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation, and I look forward to serving with all of you all.
Well, look forward to meeting again in person when you get to know all the rest of the folks on the podium. If you would, just give it. Can everybody see Sid in the top left-hand corner?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's just go say something and start with you, and we'll just go down the list and tell Sid who you are so she can make your connection with this college.
You will have to unmute before you start speaking.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm Ann Meyer, as you know, and Denton Law Firm, where I am employed as counsel for the board. So it's good to see you again.
Jeffrey?
Hi, Sid. It's Guthrie Allen. Of course, we know each other. Great to have you on the board. Look forward to serving with you.
Judge? Judge Clymer?
Oh, yes. Craig Clymer, I'm a Creighton County Judge Executive. Good to have you on board. I am a proud graduate of Paducah Community College. Anybody remember Paducah Community College?
Teresa?
Hi, Teresa Span, Principal McNabb Elementary. Welcome, sis. So proud to have you join us.
And Shay? Shay's not on the board, but he's up there. So why don't you introduce yourself to Sid if you haven't already met her.
Hi, Shay Nolan, VP of Campus Operations. Great to have you on board.
And Bill? Wheeler?
Yeah, Bill Wheeler. Glad to have you on the board.
Mike? Mike Sam? To unmute.
Sid, hey, welcome to the board. She and her husband have been good friends of mine for a long time. Happy to have you.
And finally, Dr. Reed, you're the last one I see on the screen. I don't know if there's anybody else up there, but.
Sid, welcome aboard.
Anyway, we're very glad to have you and know you're going to hit the ground running. Let me then, those of us who are here are going to stand and pledge allegiance to the flag, and I think you all will see a flag on the screen if you will join us for that. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all.
I realize Lorraine is up there too somewhere. I just lost her.
There's several people along the bottom that you don't see. Right now, you're just catching the one to the top or whatever, the last one to join.
So since you all do not appear on the screen, I don't know. I know I saw Lorraine up there. If you could just kind of chime in and let and I'm sorry for the awkwardness of this, but this is our first virtual meeting and we're learning as we go. Those of you who have not met or introduced yourself to Sid yet, if you would just chime in. Lorraine, we'll start with you. I know you're here.
I'm here. Welcome, Sid. We're glad to have you on our board. I look forward to meeting you in person. I don't believe we've ever met. I'm the finance chair on the board, so look forward to working with you.
Right, and Janet, I see you're down there looking at the Janet Lally? No?
Janet, she's there.
Maybe she can't hear. Lee? No?
Hello, yes. Hi, Sid. Sid and I met briefly virtually earlier this week and for a little bit of a board orientation. And welcome aboard, Sid. Very glad to have you as a trustee.
BB? Who's BB? We don't know. Kevin?
Bruce.
Oh, Bruce Rockbrook. Okay. Hey, Bruce, are you there?
Hi, Sid. It's Bruce. Look forward to working with you once again.
Kevin?
Yes, Kevin O'Neill, welcome aboard. I'm the Vice President of Regional Workforce Training and Economic Development here at the college.
Okay, I'm seeing initials, RJ.
It's Roberta Jackson.
Oh, Roberta, okay. Roberta is another name you should get noted. She does lots of support work for the college with Lee and with Karen and Kyle. And speaking of Kyle.
Hello. My name is Kyle Fisher. I'm the manager of advancement in the advancement department for WKCTC.
And KB? Did we do KB? Or BC?
Who? Let's take KB.
Anybody?
I'm BC, Sid. I'm Bridget Cantor. I am the Director of Human Resources here at the college. Welcome aboard.
Thanks, Bridget. We have a DS. Okay, since we're not communicating very well, we're going to save the rest of the introductions for when we can actually introduce Sid in person. And let's then move to approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Williams here.
And Denton, I second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Those all ayes for not opposed. Ayes. Okay. Motion carries. Okay. Lee, I think you are next on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. And appreciate everyone's patience with the virtual meeting and us getting it all figured out. A few activities I wanted to mention. During COVID, when we were working remotely, we did work hard to continue outreach to donors and some of our shareholders and stockholders in the foundation and the college through email, through some personal phone calls, as well as we did the second edition of our quarterly newsletter. So hopefully you all received it a few weeks ago, either by email or by postal mail or both. And I'm very glad, I think as most of you know, to have gotten the newsletter up and going on a regular basis. It's something that had been discussed since I came on board, that we wanted to get started back up. So that's a good outreach piece that we've gotten underway. Another big activity that we've been working on in advancement, and specifically Kyle has been working on in partnership with our student services department at the college, are our scholarship offers for the coming academic year. And we'll give a complete report once we have all acceptances, but to give you an idea of where we are currently for merit scholarships, those are the sort of automatic scholarships based on GPA and ACT scores. We offered a total of 358. Currently, 136 have been accepted. Well, and those are not reoffered. You either meet that criteria or you don't. So that is the accepted number, and that's about $160,000 for merit scholarships. In our donor named scholarships, and those we do second and third rounds. For those that aren't accepted, then there are alternates that they're offered to. We've done that for the second time, and student services is handling that outreach. So we'll get total numbers from them soon. But currently, we offered $115,000 worth of scholarships in the donor named ones, and 87,500 have been accepted. That's a pretty high acceptance rate, significantly higher than our merit scholarships. And all of that then is in addition to the community scholarship program, where we will likely, the expected payout is a little over $500,000 for this academic year. So that's a status report of where we are now. And again, when it's all finalized, we'll give you a written breakdown of those numbers, as well as what counties students are coming from, and that type of information. Any questions about that? Okay, if not, I'll move on to recent contributions and funding announcements. That a couple of things that do not show up in the quarterly gift report you received, which just goes through March. But I want to make sure that everyone is aware of what Paducah Bank has done in honor, memory of Dr. Wally Montgomery and Mr. Bill Schrader, who were Paducah Bank board members, and of course, very involved with PJC and supporters of the college. So Paducah Bank made a contribution of $25,000 to be split between the endowments of those two gentlemen, the Wally Montgomery Scholarship Endowment and the Bill and Meredith Schrader Scholarship Endowment, and have extended a match challenge. So they do want us to raise $25,000 from additional donors. And if that challenge is met, Paducah Bank will then give another $25,000 next year with the same matching opportunity, and continue that until a total gift of $100,000 from Paducah Bank and $100,000 from other donors is reached. So we'll definitely need support and help for reaching this year's $25,000 match. And you'll be hearing a little bit more about that. We'll probably do a specific mailing to you about that. Another announcement I want to make, or information I guess I want to share, is that we've been working hard on community scholarship program, fundraising, especially working with the county and city in difficult budget times. Thank you, Judge Clymer. I know you're on. The county did feel like they had to reduce their contribution this year, but in very difficult times, we're very glad that they continue to see the importance and really the economic development purpose of the community scholarship program, and did have to reduce to what $75,000 contribution for the current year, but do intend to step that back up, if at all possible, next year to the 125. The city did remain at 125 for the current year, and we've received the county's 75 and should receive the city's 125 in June. We also just recently received a $25,000 contribution to CSP from Paducah Bank. So that is very exciting. They were longtime supporters and original donors, but had not been donors within the recent couple of years. And so bringing them back on board is a great accomplishment. And we're working with other donors on CSP as well. Again, most of those numbers do not show up, or I think none of those numbers show up in the current gift report. Before I move to it, one thing I also wanted to mention with the operating budget that you will hear from the Finance Committee on later. We worked very hard to present a conservative but realistic operating budget that is made up of the tax revenue, PJC tax revenue, and programming revenue. And that will be presented by the Finance Committee, who has approved it to present to the board for full approval for the 2021 fiscal year. That does not include very much about donor funds or anything. That's strictly the operating budget. So that will come up later in Finance Committee. Any questions about anything I've said thus far? Okay, if not, I'll draw your attention to the quarterly gift report, which is January through March. I think it's showing on your screen. The total that came in gifts is just under $108,000 for that period. And the majority of that is in scholarships. You can, I don't know if you can see those numbers. If you can, about 60,000, just under 60,000 came in scholarship contributions. That does include one brand new scholarship from the Institute for Supply Management. That will be an annual scholarship, at least for 16 years. If the money runs out, I don't know if they will refund that or not. It was a special situation that they brought about that scholarship, and we were happy to get that. In addition, of course, to all of the funding that came in gift income. Any questions about the quarterly gift report or anything else from me? If not, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Dr. Reese, you are up next. Dr. Reese?
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, very good. Let me bring greetings on this afternoon for this virtual PJC meeting, as mentioned. Several items to report. As you're well aware, clearly we continue this sojourn with all things COVID. One of the measures that we put in place at the local level to ensure that we are meeting the requirements from the governor's office, CDC, and the KCTCS system overall is designating a Healthy Works director, which is our own Bridget Cantor. The Healthy Works director, or as we prefer to call her, the Health Czar, works then with two members of the cabinet that I've appointed to assist with implementing the safety measures needed, Dr. Aiken and Shay Nolan. So when I asked them to give a brief synopsis of some of the efforts that we have in place as we enter into June 1st was our phase 1. I think July 1st is the second marker, phase 2. August 1st will be the third marker for phase 3. As always, with adjustments depending on the directives that we get from the governor's office and KCTCS. So with that, Shay and Bridget.
Good afternoon, everybody. An update on the operations end of it. First of all, people that you don't see in the background that do all this great work for us is the IT team. They're working night and day to keep us going on this virtual level. Big kudos to them. Secondly, this last week, we started labs in both Anderson and Allied. Employees will check in online and students can check in at the door. And we're offering the gloves, masks in a Ziploc, and they can dispose of them after the single use. We also opened June 3rd the workforce, and I think Kevin may talk a little bit about that. That seems to be running quite well at this point. This week we worked on the logistics with financial services and some other departments to open this coming Monday, June 15th, the Student Services, Financial Aid, Business Office, MLRC, Library, and also Skills U. And then lastly, on my piece is as we get more buildings open, obviously we have a security detail that is taking care of the check-in and temp process. So as the evolution goes forward and we get more occupancy and more buildings, we're looking to enhance that to where we can get building leaders to check people in. You all know I'm a short term here at the college, but there's been a great team of people that jumped into play and got all of this together. So any questions on the operations side?
Thanks for steering the ship.
Thank you.
Bridget, anything to add?
So I will just say that it is a monumental undertaking to do the operational side of the house that Shay and his crew are responsible for, and then the compliance part. So the requirements to return to normal operations as they stand right now that are coming down from the state level, they continue to change and continue to evolve. So I keep telling everybody we're doing the best that we can. I'm not going to pretend like we will always be 100% compliant in that moment, but when we recognize that there are issues or places where we can make improvements, we certainly will shift and do that as is necessary. It is going to be more of a significant challenge as we do open back up and have more people coming to campus, because as it is right now, all employees are required that they have to take a mandatory training before they are allowed to return to campus. And then on a daily basis, when Shay refers to they have to check in, there's an online questionnaire that all employees are required to take and get approval then once they submit it to be able to access campus. That process right now is not available electronically for students, which is, makes things a little bit more cumbersome, but the system is working on that and trying to come up with a way for us to be able to better manage and handle the volume once students return. So it's a work in progress and we'll just keep after it.
Kevin, anything on workforce assessment?
Well, in regard to the assessment center, it's a soft opening, I guess the best way you can put it for the assessment center, but it's going very well. The providers themselves are taking our guidance and requirements very well. On the workforce side, we are talking with companies now. We're moving into, where applicable, any training that we can do virtually. That's very limiting, but we are going with virtual webinar type opportunities as well as online format. But it has its challenges. So we're with the companies, different companies have different challenges even to be able to do that sort of thing. But we're like I say, we're like Bridget. It's monumental for us because we have just so many things that we have to take into consideration with an employer, and it just doesn't always fit. So it's the opportunity we're going to be moving into. It's a new world for us.
So the other piece I would add, and then I'll see if there are any questions. Certainly, as you can imagine, for the fall semester, continues to get questions from students in terms of what that would look like. So we are operating with a 3-scenario type contingency plan, meaning face-to-face if things really ease up considerably, or a hybrid, that combination of some in-person and some virtual, or if for some reason there's another outbreak or something significant, we have the capacity to go back fully online. So we're operating with a 3-point contingency plan at this point, heading into the fall. Any questions?
I have a question. This is Teresa Span. I was just curious if you have to go to all online classes, does the college have means to support technology for students who may not have technology?
So that's a real good question. Certainly is a question that we learned quite a bit about as COVID really hit. So we did a combination of having some laptops to loan out to students who may not have the technology. And then Wi-Fi access is a challenge, particularly for some of the students in the outer bands, as they refer to, like at Fulton and Hickman's, et cetera. So the Skillscraft Center, getting to the parking lot, there's Wi-Fi access there, and certainly main campus as well, are the ways in which we try to, be attentive and sensitive to the students who don't have those sort of capabilities. But it's an ongoing assessment. And
if I may add to that, Dr. Reese, specifically from the foundation's viewpoint, where the foundation comes into play and as a help there, is that some of the operating budget that is allotted is for academic IT needs, and some of that has been spent. And then there is also an endowment that is specifically to help students in need through a loan process. And I've never wanted to be a bank and loan money, but Octavia Lawrence, our Associate Dean of Student Services and Advising, and I have been discussing how we may be able to purchase needed computers for checkout of the library through that endowment. So there are aspects of where the foundation is very helpful in meeting student needs. And then we do also have our Student Emergency Fund, which is largely supported by the employee campaign, as well as our food pantry.
Excuse me, this is Lorraine. Can you hear me? Yes, okay. In the same light, and that was a good point, Teresa, I appreciate you bringing that up. Is KCTCS going to be involved in any of this, being able to supply computers to students? Is there anything in their budgeting or in their assistance program?
This is Susan, and I can help with that issue, or I can answer that question.
Go ahead, Susan.
We received $2.4 million of CARES funding. 50%, or $1.2 million, is strictly for student benefit. It cannot go to pay tuition. It is strictly for their benefit. If they were financial aid eligible at the beginning of the year, or at any time during the year, if they had filed their FAFSA and were financial aid eligible, they could apply for this amount. And I mean, it can be a substantial amount. It could be enough to buy that computer, get the online services that they need. So far, we've spent I think it's about $600,000. So I would say that we are fulfilling that is one method that we are helping our students tremendously with.
Wow. Thank you.
Any other questions? So COVID-19, of course, has had an impact budget and enrollment. So it's a good segue for Susan to update us with the budget implications. And in turn, Emily will be talking about the enrollment.
Okay.
Let me reverse that. I'm sorry, Susan. Let me reverse that. I'm sorry. Emily, let Emily go first with the enrollment.
Okay.
And then segue in.
Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon. Nice to see everybody's faces. Welcome, Sid. It's nice to see your face again, as things are still a little unusual. For enrollment, obviously, this has been a very unusual situation for WKCTC in the face of COVID-19, and we've had to be very nimble and pivot and try to reach our students where they're at. So for our summer enrollment, what we're seeing is we look at two major buckets when it comes to our student body. We look at our credential-seeking students, and we also look at total head count. So for our credential-seeking students right now for summer, we have 912 credential-seeking students versus a total of 1086 last year at the same time. So we're about 19% below what we were last year. And for head count, a very similar story. We're at 1173 versus 1432, which is about a 22% decline versus prior year. Obviously, the impact has been COVID-19, having for us to pivot. All of our classes actually during the summer are all considered online, and that's obviously had some challenges that we're facing. As we move on to fall, same two categories are credential seeking students. Fall is a better story. We are currently at 2,319 credential seeking students versus 2,657 prior year, same time. So we're about 14.6% below prior year, and we are closing that gap. Our head count is at, our total head count is a little bit better story at 2,604 students versus same time last year at 3,087, so about 18.5% below prior year. And so as you look at all of the colleges in the KCTCS system, as an average, we're below 19.5%. Many of the institutions are below about 25%. So we're among actually some of the campuses that are closing that gap and looking at trends that are a little better throughout the system. So the admissions team and the advising center and all student services are doing whatever we can to help students continue to close the gaps, overcoming those barriers of not having laptops, things of that nature, and getting them enrolled. So any questions?
Emily, let me underscore a couple of key things though. So one of the things that all of the colleges, not only in KCTCS, but I've been participating in webinars nationally as well. A huge factor really is still students and parents and family members' assessment of the measure of safety coming back to campuses, which is impacting our currently enrolled students who are here in the spring, not registered for fall, and certainly prospective students as well. So that's why it's going to be very critical through our marketing efforts, with Janet in collaboration with Emily and her team, the ways in which we continue to, stay on message and provide as much assurance as we can that it is a safe environment to come back in. I think as Bridget mentioned, we can never guarantee safety, but we could be very intentional that we're following all of the mandated steps and doing our own infrastructure inspections, right? So we do a lot of walking around on the ground, really looking at the signage, the resources that we have in place, the PPEs, et cetera. So it is going to take some creative marketing and outreach to students. The nature of the game, as Emily would attribute in recruiting, is a relationship business. And so there's really isn't much of a substitute when you really get students in front of you, as Sid knows very well. So it's going to be a challenge. So I want to be clear on that. It's going to be a challenge for most of our community and technical colleges. The other thing I would say, and then I'll pause to see if there are any questions. I know that you may see some articles, for example, some of the 4 years. Some seem to be rebounding very well. Many of them have challenges. Part of that is the residential setup and the cost. So part of our marketing strategy then is tactfully be able to reach out to our visiting students and students who we know were intending on going off to maybe the 4-year, and maybe Sid may have some thoughts on that, and Teresa, in terms of staying close to home, at least for the next year or so is part of our strategy. Sid, anything to add there, or Teresa?
No, I just totally agree with what you're saying. Matter of fact, my 19-year-old is considering going to the community college, depending on if the campus is closed or open or not. The only thing that she's waiting on now is whether or not sports, because she is a cheerleader. So, but so her group is talking about community colleges, and the only thing that's hindering them, those that have academic scholarships, that have to be to a 4-year institute. But I know that is a topic, hot topic right now.
Yes, and I will say that I've heard students talk, I mean, my daughter included, who's headed off to law school, fingers crossed that she goes in person. But if they can't have that experience, at the UK campus or wherever, that the online classes or the local might be a good deal. So we'll see.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, Susan.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and I'm going to give a brief update on the college budget, and I'm going to include the past, present, and future. The past budget ended June 30th, 2019. We had a good year. We had a small amount of funds remaining at the end of the year, and anytime we have that, that goes into our reserve account, and we use the reserve account for special projects or needs or for additional non-routine budget items. In other words, we've held expenses to less than our revenue. We've done this for the past 19 years. So I'm pretty proud of that record for us. Now, the current budget will end June 30th of 2020. This has been a wild ride year. We've had many unusual expenses based from the COVID this year. We've had technology expenses. We've had cleaning expenses. Supplies are unreal. We're hoping that this will be reimbursed by the CARES funding that we have received. I mentioned that a minute ago. We've got the $2.4 million, and $1.2 million goes directly to our students for their basic needs and their needs, and then the $1.2 million goes for, another $1.2 comes to us for reimbursement of certain expenses. We have not got the federal guidelines yet on exactly how we can expend it. We are hoping we'll expend for reimbursement of the expenses we've had, plus be able to reimburse some of our lost revenue. As we've talked about before, spring was, our enrollment took a hit from spring due to the COVID. We didn't get our late start classes. There's, lots of factors going in there. So we're not certain on how this year will turn out yet. We hope we continue our good record. The future budget begins July the 1st. This, I think, was my 21st budgeting session, and it was by far and away the most difficult to gauge, just due to the facts, the things that all of y'all have been talking about. We don't know whether our enrollment, we based it on a flat enrollment. We took exactly what we had, credit hour production in fall and spring and summer, and we projected it out to a flat enrollment for next fiscal year. If we get a greater share or enrollment, the budget will be in better shape. I mean, I guess it could go either way, and we aren't sure what it will go on, but it is, this year's budget was around $48 million. So do you all have any questions on?
I just have a comment. We're going to miss you so much when you retire in August, Susan. I just want to say thank you for all the years that you served, and for Sid, whenever anybody wants to know whether we can afford anything, the first person we talk to is Susan, and the second person we will talk to is Karen. So these gals have had their hands busy with finances, and we're going to miss all of Susan's experiences when she retires. Thank you for all your years of service.
Well, I certainly will miss working with and seeing you all too. I've had a great career and leaving a great institution. Thank you.
We're with you on that. And before we leave the President's report, Dr. Reese, I know Teresa has been on longer than Sid, but and most people are familiar with the Aspen Prize that this college has made for has reached the top 10 for the 5th time since its inception. And that the one time we laid out, I think, was when Teresa came on 2019. We didn't apply for the last cycle, the last 2-year cycle to apply. And so would you, Dr. Reese, want to share some of Josh Weiner, who's the head of the Aspen Institute, some of his comments about how we made up the gap since we last qualified as a finalist in 2017, I guess?
Definitely will, Madam Chair. So yes, indeed, as you saw the news, great news in the backdrop of all things. That now this is our 5th top 10 appearance. As mentioned, 2019, that was the year of our accreditation, SAC COC. So, you want to get that right, in order to keep the college open 10 years at a time. The Josh Weiner, who heads the organization, as part of the call and as part of the process, was, very pointed in his remarks that he was, his organization, they have, I think it's 32 experts that they track your websites and press releases, and we submit all this data, around our success measures, retention, graduation. A lot of focus for Aspen is on underserved and diverse populations, and they were very, very impressed with the magnitude of the efforts, both outreach and internal emphasis that we've placed on diversity initiatives. Was a huge part that he wanted to underscore as part of this process. It is a very competitive process. If you look at the list of the colleges that we're competing against, some have asked, I was doing a media interview yesterday. You look at the list, 6 of the 10 colleges, 4 from Texas and 2 are from Florida. And what do those areas have in common? Incredibly large, diverse populations. And depending on the geography, the salaries of students, in areas like Valencia, Florida, they got Disney, et cetera. So it really is a high testament, though, that we are in that top 10. Competing against these incredibly large, diverse, and more affluent schools as well. So the next steps will be in the fall. I believe it's in the October timeline. They typically do an on-site visit, but because of COVID, it will be virtual. So we'll be calling on some members from the foundation, the board of directors, community stakeholders, and certainly folk internally. And they will ask a series of questions to undergird the sort of efforts and successes that we say that we do over time. And then in May 2021 in Washington, D.C., the 10 finalists assemble. And as those of you who participated before, it's a nationally televised event. And it is very humbling in all the associated terms, being on that stage and in that sort of spotlight at the national level. So, we look forward and, see what this year brings.
Congratulations on making it a 5th time. Congratulations to everybody. I'm talking about staff and board and professors and the whole ball of wax. It's a great institution. Let us then, if there's no more president's report.
One other quick report. I think Bridget is still online. Bridget, could you just give a brief update where we are with the CAO search?
Yeah, we actually are, I'm right now supposed to be heading into another room to start an interview this afternoon. So we did one interview yesterday with a candidate, and we actually have 2 candidates on campus today that we are, and these are the 3 finalists for the position. So we're going to wrap that up here in the next hour or so, and then provide lots of feedback to Dr. Reese from the various groups that the candidates have met with. They've met with the cabinet, they've met with our academic deans. We had an open forum virtually where faculty and staff and students could log in and ask questions of the candidates. And then they ultimately meet with the search committee as well. So they've had busy days, and we've had busy days the past 2 days, but they've been good candidates, and we're excited about getting someone on board.
That concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Lorraine, we'll move to finance. You've got a pretty full list of things to get through, so turning it over to you. Lorraine?
Yes, she's unmuted. Did she unmute?
Have you unmuted your mic, Lorraine?
Okay, I think I'm with you.
There we are.
Yes.
Good.
The Finance Committee did meet. We did meet virtually. It went very well, I thought. We were able to talk well with each other and, come up with some good reviews. So the first thing we did, we reviewed the current budget reports, and we found them to be in order, and they are ready to be filed for audit. Finance Committee recommends approval of the PJC operating budget and the Challenger Learning Center budget for the 2021 season as presented. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Was there a second?
Somebody did.
Was it Ken the second? Who seconded?
As for clarification, because Roberta needs to get that down.
Who is it that made the second? Seconded the motion? John moved that we approve the PJC operating and budget and Challenger Learning Center budget, but we need a second for the record before we vote.
This is Teresa Span. I'll make the second.
Thank you, Teresa. Are there any questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Back to Lorraine. I was about to take over your committee. Lorraine, I'm sorry.
That's okay. You certainly can. Okay, the Finance Committee also listened to a presentation regarding the nursing program and their request for funds for their department for support for 2021. The reason they needed these operating funds, the biggest reason, is the fact that the hospitals are not participating as much as they did before. We discussed that in length, and
We're above that because of difficulties in recruiting.
Excuse me, who's with me on that? I heard some comments.
Lee was chiming in just a minute, but go ahead and finish your remarks, and then Lee can maybe add to them.
Yeah, very good. And I was going to ask her to do that. So, Lee, can you tell us the status of why this request is being made and what we're going to attempt to do about it in the future?
Sure. Am I being heard? I had to move. I'm now in the boardroom with some others. I've had some technical difficulties in my office. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, the hospitals current fiscal year reduced the amount that each of them had contributed from $100,000 each to $50,000 each. So that is a decrease, obviously, and a concern. But beyond that, then the college is having real difficulty in recruiting and retaining nursing faculty with the salaries that we were able to offer. So there's a critical need for nurses. There is a great workforce opportunity, and actually our new graduates could go to work immediately after a 2-year degree for more than we were able to pay our faculty. So a whole adjustment was done, great data gathering and studying of information from not only the nursing department, but from academic affairs and Susan with the budget and Bridget in human resources and all aspects. And it was determined that the college needed to ask for foundation support in the thought process of the foundation being here to help meet critical needs, and this is a critical need for this coming fiscal year. We are uncertain what the hospital support will be like this year, but we feel pretty certain it will not increase from where it was last year, or actually at the beginning of this fiscal year. So the ask is that the foundation, out of unrestricted funds that are available, commit up to $300,000 specifically for nursing department support for the coming fiscal year if the hospitals or other contributors, which, to clarify, we're working very hard on, we talked about that at length at the Finance Committee meeting, if they contribute, those contributions would make the amount of what the foundation is used from the foundation come down. So if we get $100,000 from the hospitals for this current year, the foundation dollars would actually only be $200,000. but we need the commitment of up to 300,000 because there is such uncertainty currently, especially with hospital furloughs and all things COVID-19, as to what that support may look like.
Well, can we concentrate on money to raise the salaries for the nursing faculty? I mean, if we don't have the nursing faculty.
Yeah, that's included in this act.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Because nurses can go out and get a job so readily and command nice high wages that the college hadn't been able to compete.
More than the faculty.
That's crazy.
Yes.
So kind of a synopsis of what this is making up the shortfall of what the hospitals have contributed so far. We might do better, but we haven't so far. And retaining and recruiting nurses and instructors for this program. I mean, nursing instructors for this program. Am I correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
And I see Renee is on here too. Renee, Dr. Aiken is, if you'd like to add anything, please feel free to jump in, because I know this is an unusually large request that we're dealing with. So.
And I believe
It is
Sherry Golson is also on, Dean of Nursing. Mm-hmm.
Sherry, would you like to go first?
Is Dean Golson on there?
Sherry?
Yes, I am so sorry. I've joined by my phone and I believe I am.
We can't hear you, Sherry.
Coordinator. It was an excellent summary. Lee?
We're having a little difficulty hearing you, Sherry, on this end. Renee, would you want to jump in?
Certainly. This is Renee, and Sherry. Dean Golson is here with me. We have a good applicant pool, but as Lee was saying, we need to be able to offer those individuals a competitive salary in order to be able to bring them on board and keep them. We have a strong correlation between having a good, strong, consistent faculty and a higher retention rate. So in order to meet the needs of our community, we need to be able to have a sufficient number of faculty to work with those students to help them be successful.
Rain, you want to call for the question if there's anybody else, unless somebody else wants to chime in on discussion?
Well, I think, what you just said, that's fine, but aren't we also going to take care of our current faculty, make sure that they are compensated? I mean, I understand we need money to get others to come to us, but how about the ones that are here? Are they included in this?
Lee affirms
Yes,
that
they are.
Okay, very good. I think it's really important to note too that the request for funds is up to 300,000. So that's not necessarily a given. It depends on how well we do with trying to convince the hospitals to participate a little more. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay, do we have any comments or questions from the board? If not so, I'd like to call for a vote that we approve up to 300,000 from unrestricted accounts to fund the request for the nursing department support for 2021. This is a one-year thing. We hope that everything is corrected by the following year.
Ann Denton, I make the motion.
And second?
John Williams, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any?
And just for the record, if I could be recorded as abstain, as I shared with the chair, we are making this proposal on behalf of the college, so I don't want to be double dipping, if you will.
Well, now, okay. Okay. Any opposed?
Thank you, Lorraine. Motion carries. We'll move to my remarks, and I'll try to keep them brief because it is our customarily that we try to keep this under an hour, but I do have an update on the mineral rights, which at first surfaced last fall and necessitated a bunch of legal work, which turned out to be even more extensive than first thought. But as a synopsis, you all will remember that Tom Waller, who was a founding member of my law firm, it used to be Waller, Threckle, and Whitlow. Now it's Whitlow, Roberts, Houston, and Stroud. But he set up a trust in his estate, and his trustees no longer they don't want to fool with the gymnastics and they're just ready to let the trust go, but they had to find somebody who would take the proceeds and then manage it going forward. So they approached the PJC board, and they have.
Well, we were named in his will. Remember, there was Trust A and Trust B.
But that's right. So when the trust, the beneficiaries of the trust decided that it wasn't, they didn't want to fool with the management, because it comes at this kind of income may be heavy one year, and another year there may not be much to it. We looked into it. There was not much downside to accepting the proceeds. Anyway, there is a motion for termination of trust because of COVID has been pushed off from month to month to month, and right now, July 27th is supposed to be the time when the court considers the motion to terminate the trust. Now, there's always a possibility that could be continued according to COVID, but the good news is the Assistant Attorney General has filed no objection to the termination. And at present, the balance of the trust for this year is $32,477. So, that's nice income. Next year it may not be $2, but the following year it could be $15,000. Who knows? So anyway, just that was an update for where we are standing on that. And then I believe that Lee has shared with you the projected calendar for 2021.
It was included in the email that I sent out.
So that's just for point of reference. If you have any problems with that, don't take it up with me, take it up with Lee.
I thought I was just sharing your information on behalf of you, Ann.
Well, it's a team thing.
And do we have to have a motion to accept that trust?
It's already been decided.
It's done. Okay.
It's just the
executive committee, I think,
recommended to go ahead and recommend it to the full board. And I think we discussed it last fall and decided it was worth pursuing. So it just kind of dragging its heels.
You don't have to have a formal motion to accept it.
We did have a formal motion.
We did. The exec committee had a motion to approve.
No, I think it came up in the full.
Did they bring it to the full board?
I think it was to the full board.
I believe it.
I wouldn't be comfortable.
Because you weren't comfortable if it wasn't.
And they authorized Bill and.
I think it's the one meeting that you were traveling.
I think it's what it was too. But anyway.
It is in the minutes
and Dr. Wheeler and I went and signed everything after that, but we wouldn't have signed it perfect for the fact. So, the only other business I have is to note that with Judge Hines' passing, we do have a vacancy on the board. It would be the new nominee would be available or elected to a 6-year term. And as you know from looking around the virtual screen and the virtual board table, most of us are not getting any younger. And so if you all know of anybody out there who is young and loves the community and loves higher education, this is a mighty fine place to be. And please share their names with us so that we can consider asking Judge Clymer for the appointment. This appointment, I think, falls to Judge Clymer. The mayor had the last appointment, which was Sid's. And so we would like to get that done as soon as possible just because we need everybody. Let's see. We talked briefly, too, about the revision of the bylaws that keeps getting pushed and pushed and pushed. We're now operating outside of the bylaws, so we will tax that this summer and see if we can't come back with after working with council and come back with a proposal for the fall. That is all I have. Is there any old business? Any new business? I believe we have Mr. Williams.
I have the report of the nominating committee, which consisted of myself, Jeff Hines, and Ann Denton. Here is our proposal. Ann Gwynn has graciously committed to serve another year as chair. We have Chris Black as vice chair. We have Lorraine, who again, she said, I asked her last year to do it, and it'd be our last time. She's done it again. She said, I'll do it. So Lorraine Schramke as treasurer, myself as secretary, and at-large officer will be Bill Wheeler. I would submit those and ask for any nominations from the floor. Seeing none, I would make a motion that we approve the addressed committee.
I second the motion. Ann Denton.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Any further business? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned.